What is up, beautiful people? Episode 132 of Scorch the Fears. We're here with Fola. She was someone I found on Instagram. She seems awesome, so I really wanted her on the podcast. And yeah, Fola, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonah.
Yeah. So real quick, for the people that don't know you, give like a real quick real estate resume. What you've done in real estate and like what you're doing right now.
So, hi everyone. My name is Fola Adunola, and I started off actually as an investment banker. And I did that for a couple of years, but I did not love what I was doing. So, I decided to get my real estate license. I dabbled in real estate investing a bit, and I lost money on my first deal because I actually bought a 4 unit building, believe this or not, right out of college, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I lost money off of that deal. So I kind of like backed off and started in investment banking. I did that for a little bit, but I just did not find fulfillment in doing that. So I resigned and went into selling real estate full time. And I did that for a couple of years. I didn't love it as well. And then back in 2010, I had my daughter. And after that, I was like, you know what? I don't want to like drive people around anymore. If you're a real estate agent, there's nothing wrong with that. It was just not for me. So I stopped doing that. And after I had my daughter, and I decided that I was going to go into real estate investing full time. So I went for a 3 day seminar, and it was at my local real estate investment club. And the guy who spoke talked about real estate investing. And I mean, I dabbled into real estate investing, so I kind of knew what I was doing. Well, not very much, but I thought I did back then. So I pretty much just said, you know what, after the 3 days, I'm actually going to like take the leap of faith and go out there and look for houses to buy. And I went out, and my first property was at an auction. So we bidded on the property, and I didn't think I was going to actually win the auction, but I won. And they wanted me to put 20 grand down. And I was like, now where do I find the 20 grand? I took some money from my mom, put out the 20 grand, and everything that could go wrong with that deal actually went wrong. But finally, we went to settlement, and immediately we did that. I was like, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistake that I actually did my first time out. So I got a mentor, and actually getting a mentor was another thing. The mentorship was like 25 grand. And my husband was like, are you sure you actually want to do this? And I was like,
It's a lot
well,
of money.
yeah, back in 2010. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I'll just do everything they tell me to do. And if I fail, I'll just come back and say, hey, I won my money back because I did everything and it still didn't work out. So, but I joined the mentorship and I bought the house, renovated it. It took me about 3 months. And I remember writing down my income goal for that year at 150,000. But guess what? My first deal, I made close to that. And that was the turning point for me. And I just said, you know what? I'm not going back to selling real estate. This is what I want to do. And like they say, the rest is history. I'm here today because that's just the story.
I love it. I love it so much. So then, um, you pay for the mentorship. You were selling real estate beforehand. Um, was it just the money, or like what made you want to do the switch of like going from like more of a job to more of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I mean, both my parents are entrepreneurs, and I just did not love working for someone else. So I mean, I was working at an investment firm, and I would go in and work long hours, and it was just I just knew that there has to be something better out there for me. And I remember like my train ride back then from my house to get into work. So my office was in DC, and I lived in Maryland. So it would take me about an hour and a half every day to get into work. And I said to myself, there has to be a better way. So that got me thinking. And that was when I said, okay, I did that for about 4 years. And I was just like, nah, this is not for me. And I got my real estate license. But when I got my real estate license, it was more of like, okay, I wanted to be my own boss, have the flexibility to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. But selling real estate was not cutting it for me. It wasn't until I went into like fix and flip and actually buying properties and renovating it and development. That was the thrill, that was the excitement, and that was the exciting part of the business for me.
I love it. I love it so much. So tell us, like, what were your biggest fears when you were starting out, and like, how'd you overcome them?
So I had lost $100,000 when I first started. This was right out of college.
That's rough.
And I mean, it was like the only saving grace back then was that the value of the house it was a 4 unit building that I bought with my fiance um, back um, back then. And I it took me years to get over that like initial losing that 100 grand. But I realized what I did was that I went into investing without actually educating myself. So, and I tell people now, I tell my mentees now that, okay, hey, if you want to be a doctor, right, you go to school, you study. And why would I want to like be, come into real estate without knowing anything? And that was my biggest mistake. I did not educate myself. And I went to a $100,000 seminar because I did not get educated. So the next time I was doing it, I remembered like, okay, this was what you did wrong the first time. Don't go down that route. You got to get yourself educated. So I knew that regardless, I needed to have a mentor to guide me and say, okay, well, hey, this is what you do, this is what not to do. And then in terms of like fear, my biggest fear not was I would not say the fear of failure, but more of like, I just didn't want to lose money again. I was afraid of that, okay, well, what if I try and I lose that money again? So, but I mean, I just had to do what I had to do because it was either, okay, keep doing the same thing, right? And expecting a different result, or make the change and see what happens. So when I paid that 25 grand for the mentorship, I mean, I was like, oh my God, this is a whole lot of money. What if this doesn't work? But I was just like, you know what? I'll try it. And if it doesn't, it just doesn't. So, and I just went ahead and did it.
I love it. So what do you like? I mean, what did you feel like? Was it just like a trust thing? Like, how did you know that you, or like, how did you get over spending that much money? I mean, 25 grand is not nothing, right?
Yeah, I think, I mean, so I went to a 3-day event. And when I went to that event, I saw other investors who were actually doing real estate and talking about like, I have this deal, I have that deal. And I said to myself, like, if all these people can actually, I mean, they're actually here doing stuff, I feel like I can do the same for myself. So even though I had that fear that, okay, I might actually lose this money, but at the same time, it was going to be okay, well, are you going to let that fear stop you? Or am I just going to have that blind faith and just go ahead and say, okay, well, hey, whatever happens, happens at this point. Let me just get it done. And I just went in and I just said, hey, let me do it. Whatever happens, happen. And things pretty much worked out, and it worked out well.
I love it. I love it so much. So, okay, so then tell me about the rest of your journey. Like, how did you keep going through it? What were your next challenges? So you make a ton of money off your first flip, it sounds like, right? What was
Yes.
the rest of your challenges? How did it go from there?
So it went pretty well. And well, my third deal, I got off of by putting out bandit signs. And I bought that house and it was a great deal. And I was going to make a lot of money, right? But unfortunately, I got sued by the estate or one of the heirs of the estate actually came back and said, hey, the person who sold the house was not supposed to sell the house to me, and that they were suing to get the house back. This was after I had done all the renovation to the house. I think back then I bought the house for 150,000, and I invested about another 250,000 into the rehab. And this lawsuit came, and it was not going away, and I had to. It was a hard money loan. I had to keep paying the hard money lender. I had to keep paying the interest on the loan for a while the title insurance kicked in. And it took, I think it took about 3 years to actually get out of that lawsuit. And I thought at that point that that was going to take me out of business, but it did not. um, I kept on going, and I kept on buying other deals while this house was just sitting there. And because of the legal challenge, I could not sell the property because it was in court. So I could not sell the house. And that went on for 3 years. And finally, the case was dismissed. And the only saving grace again was that between then and like in between that 3 year period, the house went up a lot in value. So I made a lot more, even though, I was paying the mortgage. I was stressed out, like, okay, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? But at the end of the day, I still made a lot of money off of that deal. And I just kept going.
I love it. I love it. So then, what? So once you started doing that, are you mainly doing flipping right now? Are you just trying to grow a flipping empire? Like, what? Where did you go from flipping? Is it like just doing more flips, or what are the I guess here's the real question actually. What's the challenges people have with flipping that they don't know about? What are the challenges that people should watch out for before they've ever done their first flip that they probably will screw up?
I think the biggest thing is not really knowing about what goes into a house. So, which was what I did, right? I went into flipping, or I bought a 4 unit building. That was my first deal. And it was a house that needed everything. And I just said, okay, let me go get a contractor who is going to come in and they're just going to do everything, right? And he was licensed, bonded, insured, everything. We had all the paperwork signed. And I was going into the house and looking at the house, and it felt to me that the contractor was doing what they were supposed to do. But the key thing was that I did not know what to look for or what to be on the lookout for. And that's what happens a lot of time with like new investors, where they come into flipping, they don't have any background as to what goes into fixing a property up, and then they go in blindly. And if you run into a bad contractor like I did, where he was doing all the cosmetic stuff and the big ticket items like the plumbing, electrical, all of that was not being done, and we were getting inspections. So that's the other crazy thing, right? I had a 203K loan, and the inspector would come out, and I don't know what I can bet you that he paid this um, inspector off. But the inspector would come in. It was a third party inspector, and he would come in and sign off that, hey, everything looks okay, but nothing. So with that, I thought everything was fine, but this guy was not doing anything, and I lost $100,000 based on me
Jeez.
not educating myself and not actually knowing what to look for. So basically, if you're getting into flipping or into fix and flip, you got to make sure that
So how
um,
do you avoid that? What would you do? What would you do? What would you say to a newer investor? It's like, I want to do fix and flipping, but I don't want to lose $800,000. What would you say to that person? How do they get over? Or what do they do? Do they partner with Fola? How do they make sure they don't? What should they do?
definitely they need to get a mentor who has been there, and not just a mentor, but someone who actually understands what goes into construction and you got to get out there as well and learn, right? So you have to have someone where you can shadow them. They can tell you, okay, hey, this is what is going on with the house. So I would absolutely say getting a mentor, because I got a mentor for myself. That was what I paid the 25,000 for. And they took me through the process of like, okay, these are the documents that you need to have with your contractors. These are the critical documents that you need to have signed. This is what goes into a house. This is what to look out for and all that. So I would say that if you're first starting out, you want to have someone in your corner who actually knows what they're doing and can actually put you through. And then once you've done maybe 2 or 3 deals, and then I the other thing too is that I would not start off with a full-blown construction or rehab like I did, right? I would start off with like simple paint, carpet, kitchen. If you're starting out brand new, that is what I would advise. And then once you start learning and you get comfortable, maybe do 1 or 2 of those. And then you feel like, okay, now I understand what goes into renovating a house. Then you can go into like the full blown rehabs.
Okay, I love it. So how do you find a mentor? What's the best way to do that, you think? Do you just pay for it? Do you pay 25 grand? I did something similar to that. Like I just paid for my mentors. What do you think is the best way to find a mentor? And let's do it with paying for it is one way. We can always say that. What would you do? Let's say you don't have any money. What would you say to someone then? Let's do both of those answers. That's a harder one.
Yeah. If you don't have money, that's hard, right? So for me, I would say the first way is like if you have money, right? What I do is that, and this is in any industry as well, like whatever it is that I want to do, I seek out the best person in that industry, or well, I go online. I try to find as much information as to, okay, well, who is actually like out there doing exactly what I want to do right now? Who is out there crushing it? And I would study them, see what they're doing. And if they have a mentorship program, I would sign up and pay to sign up. And I don't care how much it is, I would just pay and sign up. Now, if you're dealing with like someone who doesn't really have the cash, then I would say that you can still use the same principle, right? And see if this person is online on Instagram and what is it called? Instagram, YouTube. Go on there, follow them, get as much information as you can get, and start saving up money so that immediately you can pay to have them mentor you.
I love it. Okay, cool. So like, getting a mentor, understanding what goes into construction. What do you feel like people miss? Like, what should you be looking out in construction? Like generally, like for a flip that like you missed on your first one.
I think being too trusting. So I think I was naive. I placed all my trust in the contractor, right? And I thought, okay, well, he was going to be on the lookout for me, but he was on the lookout for himself. So if you're starting out brand new, I would definitely say that the key thing is that you want to be your own advocate, right? Your GC is not going to be on the lookout for you, sadly, because and this is not to say everyone is going to be like that, but for me, that was what happened. My GC was not on the lookout for me. He did not care. He wanted to make his money, and that was what was important to him. So I would say that you want to be your own advocate. You want to look out for yourself. You want to make sure that you cross all your T's and dot all your I's, and you have all the information, and then ask questions. So basically, after that first experience, right, when I went back and I got into real estate the second time full time, when the contractor would come on the job, I would go out and I would meet up with the contractor and just ask questions. Okay, so what are you doing? What exactly is this that you're doing? What goes into this? What goes into that? And by doing that, I started learning on the job. It took a while. I mean, it took me several projects coming up with like issues and everything, but I would always be at the job site. I would always ask questions. And if I need clarification on something, I will go out, like, check it out on YouTube and then actually come back again and call other contractors, like, and ask them questions. So you always want to ask questions and you always want to be your own advocate.
I love it. Okay. So how do you be your own advocate? Like in the sense of what should I be saying to the contractor? Be like, hey, those are terrible cabinets. What are you doing? Did you just use cheap? Like, what do you say? Like, what do you even like? What are you even dealing with? Like, what are you even saying to them?
So I think that when I say be your own advocate, it will be more of like, don't trust that the contractor is going to make all the decisions for you. So basically, I feel like people would come in and say, okay, well, I have a GC, and because this GC is representing me or is going to be doing the work for me, they should make all the decisions and they should know what to do. No, you got to know what you want, and you have to be able to communicate that in a professional way to the general contractor and to the subs as well, that when you come on the job, they know that, okay, they cannot just push you around and tell you. I mean, yes, I listen to the advice, right? They might tell me, I might tell them, okay, well, I want the kitchen to look this way and I want to use this kind of cabinet. And they might tell me, oh, Fola, you might want to reconsider that. And I would listen. But at the end of the day, too, I do want them to know that I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I've done my own research. I'm educated. I know exactly what I'm doing. So you want to have that confidence and you want to come to your job site, meet up with the contractor, have that confidence so that they know that, okay, you know exactly what you're talking about, because immediately they can smell that you don't have any knowledge of construction or what goes into construction. They're going to try to take advantage of you.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. So like, what do they do? Are they just like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like 40 grand when it really costs like 20 or something like that?
I've seen that. I've seen that. I mean, it's crazy. So there was one time where we had a house, and it was, I wanted to have it totally, let them come in and demo it out. And I got three bids. One was at 40,000, another one was at 20 grand, and another one was at 10 grand. And I looked and I'm like, I mean, this is just coming in and like trashing the house and demoing the walls. Why would I pay you 40 grand
Yeah,
to
that's
do
crazy.
that? That is crazy, right? And I called them out. So I called the company, I called the guy, and I'm like, I got your estimate, but like, am I building a new house? Or like, if I'm paying 40 grand for demo, what would I be paying you to, like, construct
Build
the
it.
house? Exactly. And he goes, oh yeah, that is what we charge. And I'm like, okay, this is not even making any sense. Thank you. Moving on to the next person, right? And then the one at 10, even though he was the cheapest, right? It didn't necessarily, to me, I tell people all the time as well that you don't necessarily want to go with the cheapest company. It's not all about going with the
Right.
cheapest person. You want to do your research, right? You want to ask questions. So when I interview companies or contractors that I want to work with, I ask them for references, at least three references. And I'll pick up the phone and call the references and be like, oh, have you actually worked with this person? How was your experience working with them? And I would call all three references and ask questions. And then from that, I can tell, okay, is this the person that I really want to work with, or do I need to keep looking? So that's how I'm able to kind of like, okay, decide this is a good company to work with, or hey, you got to keep looking.
Right. Makes sense. So how long did it take to find your current contractor?
So I've been working with the same crew now for about 8 years, believe it or not.
Wow, nice.
So I was telling, it's so funny that you asked that, because I was actually telling my mentees earlier on today that the best way till this day, like if I need to go out today to find a contractor, what I would do is get into the car and start driving neighborhoods and looking for construction sites or for dumpsters outside. And once I see one, I would just go inside and be like, oh, who is the GC? Can I, if they're not on site, I would ask for their number. And I would also ask, okay, who is the electrician, who is the plumbing, the subcontractors. I'll ask for their information as well. And then I just introduced myself to them. And that's how I found my current crew. I went into a job site and I really liked what I saw because it was clean. It was they were framing. I went in, everything was how I would like my job site to be. So I got the number for the general contractor and I also got the number for the HVAC person. But I GC my own job, so I have my GC license. So I knew that I was not going to be using the GC, but I got his number anyways. But I reached out to the HVAC guy and he gave me his contact. He came out to my job, gave me a price. The price was great. I asked for references. He gave me 3 references, and they had nothing but great things to say about him and about his company. So after that, I was like, okay, great, you have the job. And when he started, I was like, oh, do you have anyone that you can actually recommend for plumbing and electrical? And he said yes. So he referred the electrician and he referred the plumbing person as well. And I still work with them to this day.
I love it. I love it so much. So then, you work in the DMV.
Yeah.
That's like Washington D.C., right? That's like
Hmm.
that area.
Hmm.
Those are pretty expensive houses. So how um is that a hard market to get into? Is it any different than other markets you've been in? I don't know if you know anything like that.
So I've been in the DMV like pretty much throughout all my entire career. It's pretty I would say pretty expensive. And also the competition. I mean, now that the market is beginning to soften a little bit, the competition is not as bad, right? We're able to pick up deals right off of the multiple listing service. In the past, it's like it was almost impossible to do that. So yeah, I've been able to like find good deals. Um, Houses are like, I mean, I'm buying houses at 600,000, 650,000, and then we're putting 300,000 into it, and then we're selling at like over 1 million. And then I've also done condo deals where like we're building from the ground up, like 8 units, 5 units, 10 units. So I've pretty much done it all.
I love it. It's so good. So is it mainly like what are your goals? Do you want to just keep doing flipping? Do you want to start doing other stuff? Like what are your goals in business right now? Where do you want to be and where are you going?
So right now, I'm actually focusing more on buy and hold instead of just flipping. So now I'm picking up more properties and I'm just renovating them and holding them in my portfolio. And then also getting into mentorship and mentoring people who are looking to get into real estate investing full time as well. Because I see a lot of people where they come and they're like, oh, I have this fair, I'm not able to get in. I just want to get in. How do I get started? And that's what they tell me all the time. And I say to them, like, yes, you have to get over that fear, right? But the only way to get over that fear is to get educated. And once they get educated, they can get in. And I mean, I want to say it's easy, but once you put in the work, yes, it's easy, but you got to put in the work, right?
Right.
So yeah.
I love it. It's cool. Um, so do you have I'm like I always love asking people like do you have any books that like really changed the trajectory of your entrepreneurial journey that you can like recommend?
One of my best books, I know everybody would say this, is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I
Yes.
actually got my daughter to read it this summer. She's 14, and I was like, you got to read this book. So reading Rich Dad Poor Dad made a big difference um, for me. And another book, yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad will be like my number one. That, hey, if you're looking to get into real estate investing, you definitely want to like read that book.
I love it. So, starting to get to the end of the podcast, what this is one of the questions I love ending it with is what do you, if you could go back to Fola right when she was starting in real estate investing, what would you know then, or what would you say to yourself then, knowing everything that you know now?
Hmm, that's deep. I would say that hmm, maybe having more systems. So that was the one thing that now I do. But when I first started, I kind of just, okay, yeah, it's me. It's just me, like, growing a business. I didn't really invest in the systems from the beginning and the structure. It took me a while to get that. So looking back now, I wish I, yeah, I wish I did that when I first
What
started.
type of systems are you talking about? Like I think I know what you're talking about, but for my audience who maybe don't own a business yet, like what type of systems? Like how would what you have invested at the beginning into systems?
Like, having the right systems in place, which is about like following up, like the right automations, having the like now, in the beginning, my leads would just come in and I would write them on a piece of paper. And and even with my books, I would just like, I remember I love writing things down. So I had paperwork and like loads of paperwork everywhere. And I wish someone would have told me back then that, hey, you just want to get everything streamlined and have like the proper systems in place, have like the SOPs so that when you employ or you get an assistant, and also that's another thing, also delegating stuff to other people. I'm the kind of person where I feel like, okay, well, I know it and no one can do it better than myself. So I have a hard time actually delegating to people. So, and that kind of slowed me down. So now I'm like, nah, I'm just only going to do the um, highest thing that brings me money, and everything else I can delegate it out.
I love it. I love it so much. Okay. Cool, Fola. Well, I truly appreciate you coming on. I think you did an amazing job. Do you have anything you want to promote to my audience? Any last words before I start wrapping it up?
Um, if you're in the DMV or
Send Fola
not,
deals.
say that again.
Send Fola deals.
Yes, send your deals.
Flipping
Send
in
your
Heels
deals.
DMV. That's your Instagram handle, no? Or am I wrong about
Yes,
that? Okay.
yes. Flipping in
Yeah.
Heels DMV, right?
So where's the best place to hit you up? Instagram?
Instagram, yes,
Love
yes.
it.
Send me a message, send me a DM. And then if you're looking for a mentor as well, I've completed over 200 fix and flips, and we're still
Love it.
going. I do multiple transactions every month. Like I think right now we have about 6 rehabs going on at the same time. So basically, you're going to be learning from one of the best in the industry. So hit me up if you're looking for a mentor.
I love it, Fola. I appreciate you. Any last words?
If you're looking to get into real estate investing and you've been sitting on the sidelines, this is your sign to actually get into it, right?
Love it. I love it so much. Fola, you've been amazing. You've been awesome. I 100% agree, guys. If you're waiting on the sidelines, don't anymore. I mean, like, it's there's so much money to be made in real estate. It's made
Yep.
me incredibly wealthy. It's made Fola incredibly wealthy. So I love it so much. Thank you so much, Fola. That's episode 132. Let's freaking go.